ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وأنفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وصلى اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. Today we'll be continuing the 10th word, and we have been talking about the 5th truth of the 10th word for some weeks now. This 10th word, as all of you may know, is about witnessing proofs for resurrection, trying to understand the necessity of resurrection and how we can confirm it for ourselves as human beings and within this existence, within this universe as we experience things. In this 5th truth that we've been studying for the last few weeks, we have been looking at the necessity of resurrection through the divine names of Mujib, answer of all prayers, and Rahim, compassionate one. And specifically how the supplication of the Prophet too becomes a means of concluding that another form of existence must be created. We've looked at how he exemplifies a one who realizes their human need for eternity and directs them to the source of existence, the provider of all needs, and how he represents human potential at its most realized form. And so far in the text, it's been talking about how the prayer, the dua, the supplication he makes, that he makes consciously, is a prayer that all people make by virtue of the way they are, that all of our human needs are realized and expressed by him. So I know we had finished the first paragraph on this page, so I think I'll read maybe these 2 paragraphs as well as the footnote, because it's a long footnote. And then I'll share some questions I have, and inshallah we can have a fruitful discussion all together. Bi'idhnillah. So Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, continuing from the 5th truth of the 10th word. See, he desires and prays for bliss. The Prophet desires and prays for bliss, for such a purpose and goal that he elevates man and all creatures from captivity in the abysmal state of utter annihilation, from worthlessness, uselessness, and purposelessness to the apex of preciousness, eternity, exalted function, and the rank of being a script penned by God. See, he makes his petition with such elevated plea for succour, makes his supplication with so sweet a request for mercy, that it is as if he caused all beings, the heavens, and God's throne itself to listen and to echo his prayer ecstatically with cries of Amen, O Lord, Amen. And here we have the long footnote that says, indeed, it is not at all possible that the master of this world, all of whose doings are self-evidently inspired by consciousness, knowledge, and wisdom, should be unaware and uninformed of the acts of the foremost among all of his creatures. Again, it is not at all possible that the all-knowing master should remain indifferent to the deeds and prayers of that foremost amongst his creatures and deem them unimportant despite being aware of them. It is further impossible that the powerful and merciful master of the world should not accept his prayers, having not remained indifferent to them. Yes, through the light of the Muhammadan being, the form of the world has changed. The true essence of men and all beings in the cosmos became apparent through that light. It became clear that they are each missives of the eternally besought one, proclaiming the divine names, precious and profound beings with God-given functions and destined to manifest eternity. Were it not for that light, beings would be condemned to utter annihilation. They would be valueless, meaningless, useless, confused, the result of blind chance, sunk in the darkness of illusion. It is for this reason that just as men say Amen or Ameen to the prayer of the Prophet, so too all other beings, from the face of the earth up to God's throne, from the soil to the stars, all take pride in His light and proclaim their connection with Him. The very spirit of the worship of the Prophet is indeed none other than this prayer. Again, all the motions and workings of the cosmos are in their essence prayer. For example, the progress of a seed until it becomes a tree is a form of prayer to the Creator. If we go up a little bit, yeah. So here, I guess, the emphasis is on this prayer that the Prophet exemplifies. First, he realizes that utmost human need that all of us share for eternity, for continued existence, for complete ongoing happiness and security, existential security. And although we may not all put it to speech, he expresses that using his human qualities in the best of ways. And I guess, here it's talking, this first paragraph especially, is talking about elevation. And the question that comes to mind is, how is it that such a prayer elevates us? What does it mean to be elevated from captivity in the abysmal state of utter annihilation, going from abysmal state to the rank of being a script penned by God? What is it about that prayer specifically that could elevate the human from basically the lowest of a low to the highest of a station? How are we to understand that, and like how does it impact us, that prayer? So that was one question I wanted to pose. If anyone wants to reflect on it, talk about it. And we have a hand, Brother Ali. Please go ahead. You're muted, Brother Ali. I don't know. There you go.
Sorry. Did you hear anything from me?
No, we didn't.
Or sorry. So it's a wonderful question. I was saying, the hard question. I thought, oh, it's a really hard question, because it is easy to speak from a believer's perspective, saying that is how we are. Our prophet is the best man. When he prays, of course, his prayers are the most elevated ones. But it doesn't really practically mean much. It's just a claim. It would be just a claim. So what I would like to start from it, why prophets' prayers represent the prayers of every creature, including human beings, including planets, earth, soil, stones, trees. Why the prophet's prayer is in the position or in the status that it represents everybody's prayer? But this is the question, and then this question comes to your question, or that led me to your question, to make a reasonable, acceptable answer. So the prophet receives the message, by definition, we have to talk here. By definition, prophet means the one who receives the message from the creator of the universe as an answer to human questions. Human questions, again, the nature of these questions are not to be found in this universe, but there are signs for it, not really straightforward explanation of it. So the prophets are given or revealed the message from the creator, what is going on in this world, what is the purpose of existence within this world, what is the purpose of existence of anything. So the creator, by definition, explains it through his message. So he is expected to represent the uh, answer that he receives from the creator in his personal life, practices it. Prayer essentially means acknowledging, recognizing one's reality. And the message comes to me through the prophets. And when I receive this message from the prophet, I understand that prophet himself has no claim about anything, any part of the message for himself, as if he is the recipient and also he is the one who practices it in its fullest sense, as much as a human capacity allows. As a created human capacity allows, he must be the one, by definition, practices the content of the message. So the content of the message is very simple. What this creation is and what is the purpose of this creation? The human beings ask these questions. And who is the source of, originator of this creation is. These questions answered in the message. So the content of the message, all the elements of the universe are nothing, created dependent beings. Acknowledge this. But who is going to acknowledge it? The message speaks to human beings. Human beings will acknowledge it. I don't know what a seed, the example is given in the text here, feels about itself when it is growing into a tree. I don't know what it feels or what is going on in the field, seed, but I have a perception of the seed. I look at the seed and say, oh, it is not doing it what it is doing. It cannot grow itself into a tree. Example, it cannot, it doesn't have the capacity, it doesn't have the quality to do that. So I will understand under the light of the message that I received through the prophets that it is acknowledging its needs, acknowledging its needs in my eye, in my understanding. It means I want my potentiality. When I look at the seed, it has a DNA, and DNA has the potentiality to grow. It is given, so it is given to the seed. The seed cannot really arrange its own DNA. It has no choice. So it is given to it. So seed says, in my eye, in my perception, under the light of the message of the prophet, seed cannot do it, but it needs to grow. It means it's expressing its need to the creator, because he cannot create it. The seed cannot create the tree, give existence to the tree. So anytime the universe continues existing, it means act of creation is also continuing. It means creator is creating the tree, not the seed. That is why I understand in this form that the seed is praying. It means acknowledging. It is createdness, it is dependence, it is impotence, that he cannot do anything. So that we understand the prayer, the prophet's prayer represents the prayers. It means prayer is the reality, accepting the reality of the universe, what it is, everything in it, what they are, including human beings, who we are, what our status is in this universe. So when we understand that, the prophet himself asks for eternal happiness. It means this is a need for everybody. I need eternal happiness, whether I believe in God or not. It is in my nature. I need eternal happiness. If I don't believe in God, I will say, yeah, it would be a good idea, but no way. It cannot happen. I'm denying my reality. But if a person is modest enough to understand that he's a created being, then he will say, yes, it is my need. He will look at the case from another perspective under the light of the message that the prophets bring to us. Look, it is my reality, the one who created it, to created me with this reality. I am desiring the eternal happiness, and the one who created me and gave me this desire must create the eternal happiness. And message of the prophet explains it. Yes, the creator promises that he is going to give you the eternal happiness if you don't reject your reality, if you don't contradict your reality. So prophet's prayer represents the reality of everything, which we do nothing but we pray. It means we acknowledge. For example, do you think when we do something, we are creating it? No, we are just praying. We are choosing by obeying the order of the universe, by obeying the order of my spirit. I am just choosing accordingly the result is created. Can you create happiness within yourself? I ask this question to myself. No, I can't. I cannot create eternal happiness for me. I don't know what happiness is, but that is what I feel. That's my reality is. Oh, that's it. It's all about my reality. I need eternal happiness. That's what I know. Whatever it is, the happiness means it is my feeling. It is just a word, represents my feeling. But I don't know what it is, but it is with me. It is my reality. That is why we have to acknowledge our reality by following the teachings or the message of the prophets, so that I will understand what my reality is, and therefore what the reality of other creatures is. So I will see that whole universe is joining the prayers of the prophets, because the prayers of the prophet will be the best one because they receive the message first and apply it in their life in its fullest sense. That's why I think we have to join this prayer altogether.
Thank you, Brother Ali. That was very helpful in understanding what it means, what the prophet's prayer represents for not just human beings, but for all of creation, right? For trees and stones and mountains. And so I guess, if we look at the universe within this framework of what prayer is, of what supplication is, we see that all existing things through this worldview are transformed into entities that supplicate to their creator and are given their specific need or sustenance, right? The concept of sustainership, the manifestation rather of sustainership emerges very clearly here and is manifested through every existing thing. That this idea of supplication, of prayer, is one that unveils the act of an ongoing sustainership in the world, and how prayers are continuously being accepted. And then we see this prayer, as the text says, of the most, if we go on that footnote for a moment, it says, oh, the prayer of the foremost amongst all of his creatures, a prayer that is most conscious, most realized of the reality of this universe. Because prayer really, in a sense, is to align one's consciousness with the observed reality. It is to come to know the sustainer and feel the need for the sustainer. And it becomes a sort of telephone line to the creator in which one's human needs are discovered and expressed. And we see that the prophet expresses that most foremost human need that is realized through all of creation. And it says here, I guess, the text emphasizes here that this prayer is confirmed through all beings, right? That all beings say Ameen to it. And I guess we see that through the state of being, the disposition of all things, from a seed to a tree, to anything else, to a plant in front of me. One other thing that I wanted to, I guess, try to understand a little bit more in terms of especially the language that's being used. I think Brother Ali's comment has clarified it a little bit, but I would just like to touch upon it a bit more. Is in this footnote, it says, well, there are two things that I want to touch upon. One, let me just see. One, it says, through the light of the Muhammadan being, the form of the world has changed, right, in the middle of the footnote. The true essence of men and all beings in the cosmos became apparent through that light. So I was just thinking, how should we understand the term light of the Muhammadan being? And the idea that the true essence of beings is made apparent, that as it says, that all beings are letters, missives, letters proclaiming divine names, pointing to the qualities of the Creator. So I'm just interested in understanding that sort of, I guess, language. If we should simply understand it as, I see that the prophet's prayer is a realization, is an expression of it's an acknowledgement of one's reality, right? And so is the idea that the light of the Muhammadan being is a way in which all existing beings or things are also shown to be expressions or signs and indications, reflections of that same reality, that same manifestation of divine names, divine qualities. I'm not sure if I made myself very clear, but I was just wondering if anyone had any thoughts or comments on that, because it seemed like there was some emphasis being given by the author on that light of the Muhammadan being. And I guess I'll
I have a question, excuse me.
Mhm.
Why I became host now?
I'm not sure.
Streamer must be the host so that I cannot raise my hand. Okay? Okay, I can raise my hand now. All right. So can I just say ask it counter question to you? Look, if I say through the light of the sun, the sun up there, the form of the world has been enlightened. What would you say? What do I mean? What did you understand from?
That the light of the sun becomes a means through which, I am able to see things. It's a means, it's a vehicle.
Or what do you think the sun is giving the light? Can it produce the light itself?
No.
How an unconscious lump of molecules be the source of light and enlightened the whole world?
Right, it can't. It requires one who has the qualities to create that light and disseminate it. It can't be the source of its own existence, and so it can't be the distributor of the light that it has been given either.
Not the originator of the light, isn't it?
No.
So the originator of the light, it must be the one who created this whole universe, correct?
Yes.
No, so isn't that easy now to understand this sentence? Through the light of the Mohammedan being, the form of the world has changed. It means originator of this light is God. But we received from Muhammad, and as we received from the sun. In our daily language, we say the sun has risen and the world is enlightened, light. Now, exactly, the light of the Muhammad is there. It means he is giving the message, and from the message, for those people who use their intellect and who are not arrogant, obstinate, deniers, can see that the whole world becomes a prayer, or the whole world represents that they are just praying the Creator. That is what the message is all about, that Muhammad brought to us. Otherwise, we are not going to make a picture of Muhammad and the sunlight is coming out of his head. We don't do that because it is not the source of, Muhammad is not the source of the light. Muhammad is the recipient of the light, and practice, the one who practiced it in his life perfectly, so that I can receive the light through the life of Muhammad, the messenger. I can learn it through the light of the messenger, but not, he is not the originator. It is in the message also, how many times it is repeated that you are not the source of this. You didn't know anything, but God let you know or taught you. That is what his message says itself.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you, Brother Ali. That's very helpful. And so we see that the message that is given through the prophet, the prophetic message, right? That the whole world that I'm able to see the world for the reality that it represents. I'm able to see how everything is in a state of prayer. And this is illuminated to me through the delivery of the prophetic message, which we call the light of the messenger. Thank you. So in the comments, we have a friend that says, it says, very, very spirit of worship of the prophet is prayer, can also mean that whatever we see in Prophet Muhammad's action, it is prayer. So this was actually the second point I was going to raise in this footnote. I thought it was important here towards the end, the fourth line from the bottom. It says, the very spirit of the worship of the prophet is indeed none other than this prayer. And I think, I think, we see that this prayer is a state of one, recognizing the source of all existence as the provider of all needs, right? And seeing that in all states of my being, I can only ask, I can only express my need. I am never the doer or the creator or the originator, but I'm always the recipient. And I see through the light of the prophetic message that everything in the universe is a recipient, is a constant recipient, that all of us, all beings are being constantly sustained, constantly given. And since this prayer is an expression of the reality of how all beings express need and neediness, to me, it makes sense to say that the spirit of the worship of the prophet is prayer, because worship is acknowledgement of the Creator, and this prayer, as we've been talking about, is expression of need of the Creator, of the source of existence, and recognizing that only He is the absolute provider of all needs that I bring to Him, that all of existence verbalizes in more than one way. And we have a further comment here that says, his actions, I am supposing they are worship, must have a prayer perspective too, that we should be able to deduce. As it says, after that, all motions of creatures are in their essence prayer, right? And I think, this touches upon this larger concept of what prayer is, right? I see through prophetic practice, prophetic message, that all of my actions, all things in the world, are just a form of prayer. And everything that is manifested is a fulfillment of prayer, a fulfillment of expressed need. The seed prays through its own disposition, through its own innate need to be grown into a tree, and that need is fulfilled through the tongue of that seed. And I express my needs through many ways, through just the way I am as a human being, my need for eternity. I express it maybe in the ways in which I seek eternity, whether I realize it or not, or I express my needs verbally, or I express my needs through my actions. And all of these, if they are done with the consciousness that only the provider, only the source of all creation can fulfill those needs, then it is worship, it is acknowledgement, it is a sort of ongoing communication, dialogue with the Creator, saying that I am needy in all ways, I'm absolutely needy, and you are the one that can absolutely meet all of my needs in a perfect fashion. All right, thank you for the comment so far. We also have a question or a comment from a friend next to me.
Just a comment. I was going to say, it's very striking insofar as how the entire paradigm of one's understanding of worship is now shifted to something that is maybe contrary to initial impressions. It's something that's internal. It's not something that's externally applied to anything. And as the text kind of also makes the argument, I am able to see everything in the universe in a act of worship, essentially. And it's not something that is applied onto it, just as the seed is made to grow into a tree, and that being a sort of worship for the seed in a way, in its recognition of seedness, if you will, its createdness, its neediness. I too am able to do the same thing or at least from my perspective, I'm able to realize the neediness of the seed, as well as the neediness of the rest of the universe, and as well as the neediness of my own being. So it's not an outward, or it's not necessarily an external set of actions per se in its essence that are applied onto anything, but rather an internal state of being, and that state of being recognized, and then the one who can fulfill and the one who brings about such a state, aka the source of existence, being recognized and acknowledged as the one who can take care of, those needs, and is the one who is taking care of those needs, in the state of witnessing the universe, in the state of witnessing myself. So yeah, that was just one striking aspect of what attracted my attention. And maybe secondly, another aspect of it is that, if we go back to the sun and the earth example, just as the light of the sun, is necessary for me to recognize the earth there, while I can still conclude that the sun itself is not the source of existence of the light, the earth or the existence of the globe is always there in a way. So it's really up to the way I view my reality to notice what is already there. Again, going back to this idea of not adding something to what is already there, but just seeing, like turning the light on to seeing what already exists, and that being my own real reality, starting with the fact that I am infinitely needy, yet at the same time I am here as a result of, and I am being sustained, and I have the opportunity to communicate with an absolute being at all times through this recognition and realization.
Yes, thank you very much for that comment. And I guess, okay, let me see. There's another comment in the chat box. It says, if spirit is prayer, then can we say form or body of prayer is worship? Basically, because when we say worship, it comes to our mind immediately the form like salah, not at all the expression of neediness. I'm not quite sure if I completely understand the question. Maybe rephrasing it would be helpful for me. Or you can speak if you'd like as well. If spirit is prayer, then can we say form or body of prayer is worship? Basically, because when we say worship, it comes to our mind immediately. Form.
I think I'm just gonna chime in here.
Okay,
Like,
sure.
Just as I see the neediness in a seed, right? It's in its physical form, but it's a matter of my spirit, my human, using my consciousness to recognize that physical. I guess we can always start with the physical first because it looks outwardly and it's easy to recognize that physical state of neediness. While at the same time, I can apply this to all the other beings and creatures in the universe, including myself, and also going beyond the physical aspect of it in terms of, my human desires necessitating a sort of, eternal life, an eternal existence. Otherwise, then as the text was saying, I get stuck in this abysmal state of utter annihilation, worthlessness, uselessness, purposelessness. So I think it's not, I don't think it's entirely, I don't think we can entirely separate the two in terms of, like they go hand in hand. My physical, I acknowledge my neediness through my physical being with my consciousness, as well as the neediness of my spirit. So there's two aspects of it there. And then when I recognize and acknowledge my creator, it is done through my spirit, through my consciousness, as well as then, in the way that I find myself as a human being, I also find the desire to express myself physically, which takes on the form of salah as we come to understand. And so salah is then completely an expression of neediness of and acknowledgement of my creator, as opposed to separating those two notions. And I'm not sure if I understood your question correctly, but inshallah, I hope that made some sense.
Great. Thank you so much for all of these comments. And I guess before we continue in the text, one thing that I wanted to note is how beautiful a way of seeing and understanding and experiencing existence this is. Realizing and confirming that all things in existence are in a state of prayer, are in a state of expressing neediness, are in a state of worship, really. And that I too become aware of this, and I too acknowledge my own neediness and poverty before the Creator. There's a sort of shared creaturehood between me and the rest of all existing beings. I have a shared commonality with the seed. I have a shared commonality with the stone, the tree, the mountains, the cosmos. There's a creaturehood there where we all look to the same Creator and ask from the same Creator through our various different tongues and ways of being. But I guess it's this nice sort of, it's a beautiful sort of communion almost. Yeah, I just wanted to share that. And I think that really, gives me a sort of shared language with the rest of existence, with the rest of creation, rather. Yeah, so I'm just going to say that. Maybe we can go on to the next page. Okay. So let's at least read the next paragraph or so, and we can see if there are further questions or comments, inshallah. So here it continues in discussion of the Prophet. See, he requests bliss and eternity from a being, one so all-hearing, generous and powerful, so all-seeing, merciful and knowledgeable, that he sees, hears, accepts, and takes pity upon the most secret wish, the slightest desire of the most obscure of his creatures, this in observable form. He answers all pleas, even if they are silently preferred. He bestows all things and answers all pleas in so wise, percipient, and merciful a fashion that no doubt remains that all that nurturing and regulating can derive only from one all-hearing and all-seeing, one generous and merciful. And I guess just a short comment that I'll make here is that, it says that the prophet, right, the messenger, is one who requests this bliss and eternity that we all also seek from a being that is all-hearing, generous and powerful, all-seeing, merciful and knowledgeable. So here, what I take from it is that, the prophet is exemplifying one who sees all of these qualities in existence, sees all of these reflections of these qualities in the universe, and is able to direct his plea towards the source of all of those qualities, towards the one who is absolute in being all-hearing, generous, powerful, all-seeing, merciful, and knowledgeable. And in that sense, makes the most of his human potential to recognize the qualities of the Creator within existence. Those qualities are also made manifest to me if I use my human potential. And the more I make use of those qualities, the more I reflect on them, the more conscious I become of them, the more I am able to direct my needs towards the source of all existence and express that same plea. But here we see that this prayer that I too want to share is expressed in the most perfect form by the human who is able to realize and become conscious of those reflected divine qualities in the best of ways. And so the text says, when this sort of request is made, the source of all existence then sees and hears and accepts and takes pity upon the most secret wish, the slightest desire of the most obscure of his creatures, this in observable form. He answers all pleas, even if they are silently proffered. He bestows all things and answers all pleas in so wise, percipient, and merciful a fashion, that no doubt remains that all that nurturing and regulating can derive only from one all-hearing and all-seeing, one generous and merciful. And what I take here is also that the author is saying, hey, look at how in the universe around you, in the creation around you, all pleas are being answered. How all of these qualities of being all-hearing, of being generous, of being knowledgeable, of being merciful are being manifested. There are pleas being answered and met constantly around me. This quality of sustainership, creatorship, mercy and compassion being expressed all around me. But only if I take notice of it will I realize it. Only if I take notice of the so-and-so silent prayer of the seed will I notice how its need is being met by an all-generous one and being given all those generously fruits and apples and kiwis and whatever. I have to make the choice to reflect on them and see it, because it is all around me. That nurturing and regulating that is happening around me. And I'll continue into the next paragraph. Let us listen to what the pride of all being is requesting, that source of honor for all of mankind, that one unique in all of creation, who bears on his back the burden of all men, who standing on this earth lifts up his hands towards God's throne and offers up a prayer which in its reality contains the essence of the worship of all of mankind. Offers up a prayer which in its reality contains the essence of the worship of all mankind. See, he is asking for eternal bliss for himself and for his community. He is asking for eternity and paradise. He is making his plea together with all the divine sacred names that display their beauty in the mirrors of all created being. You can see indeed that he is seeking intercession from those names. Yeah. Yeah, there's some things we can discuss here, but I think really it's a culmination of many things perhaps that we've been talking about, how my human need is being expressed in the most excellent of forms through this human being who is conscious of their reality, and asking for that which is made wanted by me. I want eternal bliss, and he is asking it for himself, as he exemplifies all humans, and for his community, for all recipients of the message. I mean, I'm given the message that it can be met, that there is a creator, that that the purpose of this existence is to acknowledge and come to know that creator. And so why would I not ask for it from the one who has given me the ability to ask and the want to ask and the ability to see how it can be met by the one who showcases all of his qualities through the creation to me. And I guess here I thought it was an important sentence that he offers a prayer which in its reality contains the essence of the worship of all of mankind. Because this prayer, again, just to emphasize it one more time, is a realization of my complete neediness, of my complete dependence, and how this neediness and dependence is shared by all existing things as well. And that only acknowledgement of the one, of the source of existence, can lead to a fulfillment of that need. If there were not countless reasons and causes for the existence of the hereafter, a single prayer of that exalted being would be enough for the creation of paradise, a task as easy for the power of the merciful Creator as the creation of spring. If there were not countless reasons and causes for the existence of the hereafter, as we've seen throughout this 10th word, a single prayer of that exalted being, of that human who has actualized his human potential, who has reflected on all of the qualities being manifested in this world, who has put it into practice as well, and is expressing his neediness by the one who has given that neediness. Why should it not be? It should be more than enough for the creation of paradise, a task as easy for the power of the merciful Creator as the creation of spring. Comparison is not even needed because there is no easiness or difficulty for one who is absolute in their power. And in the footnote it says, to display wondrous samples of art and examples of resurrection on the face of the earth, that compared with the hereafter is like a narrow page, to inscribe and include on that single page, in perfect order, all the different species of creation that resemble 300,000 separate books, is certainly more difficult than building and creating the delicate and symmetrical structure of paradise in the broad realm of eternity. Indeed, it may be said that to whatever degree paradise is more elevated than the spring, to that degree the creation of the gardens of spring is more difficult and wondrous than the creation of paradise. I mean, just shortly, I guess, since we're ending on time, within this creation, within this universe, it's not difficult for me to observe everything that's around me, especially, in the spring and the summer and the fall, that there is that there is an order, and that order looks to an absolute one that is absolute in all their qualities of power and knowledge and wisdom and mercy. And that whoever has created all of this for me here, it's not, I don't think it would even be logically correct to say it is difficult or easy to, those terms I don't think apply to an absolute one. For him to be able to give me continued existence in a perfect fashion. Yeah. And so I guess, we'll end here today, but I guess just again, one thing that I perhaps took away from today's discussion is that through the prophetic prayer, through the prophetic message, my entire world is transformed, right? I see that everything around me is supplicating to the Creator, and that everything is given its specific need and sustenance, that everything is taken care of. And I too am taken care of constantly. I only need to be conscious and aware of the countless ways in which all of my needs are being fulfilled. And so that same need for that most intrinsic human need for eternity, expressed by the prophet that all humans share, must also be met as it is given to me by the Creator. So inshallah, that's all I have for today. Thank you everyone for being here, for listening, participating, just for granting us your presence. Inshallah, we can continue next week with the next paragraph.
There is a note?
There is a comment. The comment says, "This was very beautiful and gave me much to reflect on about the utter depth and sublime nature of our cosmology." Thank you so much. Thank you everyone again for being here. Inshallah, let's end it. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين.
No. Who is going to announce next week, which is cancelled?
Right.